All right, man, peace. So, elite big man Anthony Davis of the New Orleans Pelicans is allegedly considering pursuing some form of trade so that he can leave the Pelicans and pursue winning on another team. Supposedly, the Boston Celtics are blowing up the phone of the New Orleans Pelicans looking to possibly acquire him. They're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I want to get to Anthony Davis and the Pelicans because Woj has an excellent story on ESPN.com that points out that, quote, Davis, while not longing for a major market team, does long for a well-run, well-balanced franchise. He's in the second year of a 5-year, $127 million deal. That story also talks about the fact that the Celtics keep calling the Pelicans saying, hey, we've got lots of picks, we've got a nice roster, interested in anything, what do you want? They obviously are coveting him.
Well, let me say this. Anthony Davis wouldn't be a good fit on the Boston Celtics. He'd be a perfect fit if they could acquire him. The problem is that New Orleans will undoubtedly request either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or both. If you're the Boston Celtics right now, with the way that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have played, you have to try to see if you can get a third or even a fourth team involved. Maybe you can give New Orleans, if you have to, all the first-round picks that you have, and try to get another team involved and maybe give them a first-round pick. You know, maybe save one of the first-round picks from New Orleans and give the first-round pick to that other team, and maybe a conditional draft pick, something along those lines. See if you can save those two young boys and bring in Anthony Davis, because if they can get Anthony Davis without having to lose any of their current players, to me, I would vault them to being the 1A team in the NBA when it comes to possibly winning a world championship. That's how good I think the Boston Celtics are in regards to the system that they play and the unity in which they play. Cleveland, to me, has far more talent overall and way more experience. And that's why I've stated from the beginning of the season that I did not want to hear any excuses for LeBron James, because I'm on record as stating that, in my view, Cleveland had the most on-paper talent in the NBA outside of Golden State. But if Boston can find a way to swing the Anthony Davis deal, he would fit in perfectly with them. Perfectly. I guarantee you they could get Boogie Cousins if they wanted to for far less, but they don't want Boogie Cousins because they know Boogie Cousins is a person who's going to put up 27 and 12, with a block and a half and 4.5 assists. But he's going to obliterate your locker room because he's literally a ticking time bomb walking around on the basketball court, very mentally unstable. And if you notice, Anthony Davis is starting to exhibit a lot of the character traits and personality traits of a Boogie Cousins. That's why it's dangerous to have certain players in a locker room, because the locker room is like a bubble. Proverbially speaking, everybody's breathing in the same air. Once again, proverbially speaking. What I mean by that is that people rub off on other people if they're subjected to one another for long enough. They start to think alike. They start to speak alike. They start to even dress alike. They hang out together. They conduct themselves in a similar way. Remember, human beings essentially are social creatures. They will start to exhibit similar traits if they are around each other for long enough. Also remember that both Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins attended the University of Kentucky. So they have a background history with each other. Point being is that it's really not conducive to New Orleans to hold on to both those players. They should trade one or both of them, because they're definitely not going to be able to keep DeMarcus Cousins if they don't trade Anthony Davis. So they're going to lose one of them anyway. So they definitely have some ruminating to do in regards to this issue.
Davis talks about how he wants to stay in New Orleans. He's very clear about that, but he's...
Bullshit. He's ready to leave. He sees that they're going nowhere fast. I'm not even sure how old Anthony Davis is right now, probably 24, 25. As Rachel Nichols has attested to, he has 3 more years left on his contract, not counting this one. And he's going to have to figure out what he wants to do. Because, time flies, man. Next thing you know, you're 28, 29 years old. You still haven't won shit. And the clock is ticking. NBA history shows you that for the most part, per decade, you have 2, maybe 3 teams that win championships. Everything else is window dressing. So he's going to have to figure out a way to get on the Boston Celtics if he can.
But he says winning is the most important thing to me. So I guess, should he stay loyal to New Orleans if that's the case?
You know what?
There's no such thing as loyalty in sports. Sports is a business. It's about doing what's best for yourself and for your family. That's all it's about. You have a lot of players in these professional sports leagues that act all butthurt when they get traded. You should never be offended when you get traded. You should only get offended when they fuck up your money. Okay? You're a toy soldier. You're there for entertainment. Your mentality should be that I'm in a professional sports league. I'm doing what I've always wanted to do since childhood. If I don't want to get traded, then I have to play well enough to be able to negotiate a no-trade clause into my contract. That should be your attitude. If you're not good enough to negotiate a no-trade clause into your contract, then you should not be upset when you get traded. That's based on your performance on the court or on the field, and you also have to be able to speak to your agent and make sure that if he can negotiate those type of clauses into your deal. At the end of the day, you're going to be making $20 million, whether you're with New Orleans or with Chicago or with Milwaukee or Boston or the Knicks, wherever you go. You're still getting paid. Believe me, there are people living far worse lives. You're loyal to the Most High. You're loyal to your family and to your loved ones. You're not loyal to a job. That's one of the forms of mind control that they utilize in these different businesses, where they tell you that you should be loyal to the job and to the company, and it's a family atmosphere. Ain't no fucking family here. If you're lucky, you might meet one person in all your time working on a job that you actually maintain a close-knit relationship with or a rapport with. If you're lucky. Now, if you have a magnetic personality, you may be able to establish more than one relationship with someone. I always made it a practice at whatever job I worked at to try to develop a very good rapport with all the other so-called black men that were there. Because the black man oftentimes is trained, particularly in a corporate environment, to be very distrusting. Oftentimes the black man will put on a mask when he's in corporate America to either be left alone or to depict himself as being overly jovial, with the understanding that the so-called black man is viewed as being angry. And as a form of survival in the job force, in the job market, he'll try to depict himself as being overly jovial. Or sometimes he's so damn simple that he is overly jovial. Either way, I would try to establish a strong rapport and a very, very open type of rapport and energy with every so-called black man on the job. Now, oftentimes you'll find, or you'll come across certain black men on these jobs, if you're a so-called black man, that are pretty simple. They might not, they might not be on your level as far as your vibration. It is what it is. But just getting back to the point, when they try to establish some form of loyalty in the corporate world, don't fall for that shit. Everything is about the bottom line. And I'm sure that Anthony Davis, if he's been properly schooled, understands that, or he should.
You know what? My way of thinking, when you ask a player, should he stay loyal, is, well, should they also stay loyal to him? Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
As well. It kind of goes both ways, because the young man has already got paid, so obviously for him, he's come from an organization in college that are used to winning, so he wants to get back to that winning. He wants to win. And, right now, New Orleans does not seem to be the right fit right now. But, again...
Well, we know it's not the right fit because they're playing a Twin Towers style of play, and that's not really going to work in today's NBA. It's just not. That style of play would have been more conducive to winning, 12, 13 years ago. And then when you're going to have that style of play, both centers have to be very cerebral. That's why the Rockets didn't work. Because, number one, Ralph Sampson couldn't stay healthy. but he also was not very cerebral. And Hakeem, during that time period in the mid-'80s, was a hothead. He used to get into a lot of fights. When you look at the Twin Towers systems that have worked, I could think of 2 off the bat, and if you brothers could think of any, you can correct me on that. But you have the David Robinson, Tim Duncan Twin Towers that won 2 championships, and then you also have the Bill Walton, Robert Parrish Twin Towers. They were able to win a title in '86, and then of course Bill Walton went down with another injury. But they were very cerebral. Anthony Davis is inexperienced and injury prone, and DeMarcus Cousins is a live wire. Right? He is extremely mercurial. So that's not going to work for them. And then you got that damn trot mouth coach Alvin Gentry, get on my damn nerve. And their backcourt is just not strong enough. Drew Holiday is good at this point in his career. He never really panned out to be the star that they thought he was going to be, but he's good. But in the NBA in the modern day NBA, you have to have a dominant backcourt to win. You have to have a dominant backcourt performer to win. When you look at the better teams in the NBA, I mean, outside the Spurs, no, but the Spurs kind of operate outside of the NBA paradigm because of the system that Popovich runs and the level of psychological control that he has over his players. You almost can't count them. But when you look at the Rockets, when you look at Golden State, when you look at Boston, when you look at the Wizards, Cleveland to a degree, once they get Isaiah Thomas back, But when you have LeBron is almost like, he plays the backcourt and the front court to a degree, because he brings the ball up and he dominates the offense. But the point being is that you need that brain trust in your backcourt or making your decisions on the court. So they're only going to be but so good. Point being is this: if Boston can find a way to get Anthony Davis without trading any of their top assets right now, to me, they're right there with the Warriors.
Yeah, right now they're in the hunt. They got 2 great players, obviously, in Boogie and Davis. But again, I understand exactly where he's coming from.
Right.
He wants to win not just this year. He wants to win on a consistent basis, kind of like San Antonio and teams like that.
Right. I agree 100%. Like, he's already got the bag, so he's him and his family are taken care of.
I like that, the bag.
He got the bag. He might have a couple of bags.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
He might have a couple of bags, but to Byron's point, like, he wants to win. He comes from a winning pedigree, like you said, out of Kentucky. They're in the playoffs right now. They have another great player in Boogie Cousins. But let's be honest, they're not going to win a championship in the foreseeable future unless they make some things happen. And for him, for his legacy, like we talked about off air, you don't want to see his talent be wasted.
Now, I will say this, though. They have enough talent to win if they have the right coach. But if they're going to keep Alvin Gentry, they're not going to win. All right. They do have the talent to win if they have the right coach. But as currently constituted, they don't have enough talent to win with Alvin Gentry. Not with that system that he's trying to play. Alvin Gentry, with his dumb ass, tried to have them play like Golden State. I still have no idea why they fired Monty for. I have no idea why they fired him for. He was doing a great job.
That's the thing that's hard for me. I love New Orleans. I think that basketball team is actually important to them. I was around them when they're rebuilding the Hurricane, and that team is very meaningful to sort of their rebirth. And I want them to succeed there. And they went and brought in Boogie. I think Alvin's a great coach. I think
bullshit. Alvin ain't no damn great coach.
I think that they are right now in the playoff hunt. But I am also overwhelmingly if Anthony Davis spends his whole career locked in a team that barely makes the playoffs and never makes, that would be such a waste of incredible talent.
Right.
Hey, it happens. Every generation you have very talented players who don't win championships. It happens. That's life. Most people today don't even know who Alex English was, or, many of those great players from that time period. Adrian Dantley never won a championship. Dominique Wilkins never won a championship. It happens. Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley. You have many transcendent players who don't win championships. For some reason, people today or players today think that they're entitled to have a chance to win a championship. If you want to win a championship, elevate your game. Anthony Davis, he might have to demand that the coach get fired. Who knows? It happens. A lot of all-time great players have done it. He might have to do it.
Right.
It is hard to reconcile, and I hate this idea of loyalty in sports, because the truth is
there is none.
No one's loyal to anyone.
No,
and AD brings up in the story.
Shit, there's barely any loyalty in life, much less sports.
Well, that's the thing. And he brings up in the story, talking to Woj, he's like, he brings up Isaiah Thomas, and he says, IT took him to an Eastern Conference Finals, and they traded his butt that summer, so, you know.
Well, they traded him for a better player. Isaiah Thomas is still offended by that, but he's offended because he believed the company line of Celtic family and Celtic green and all that other shit. See, these guys buy into it. They allow the general managers or the CEOs of the team or the owners of the team to convince them that they're actually a member of the organization. You're not a member of the organization. The reason why you sign a contract is because you're only contractually obligated to be a member of that company. Right. Once they want to get rid of you, they can do so. So you always have to keep those type of things in a proper perspective. It's like trying to date a prostitute and allowing yourself to fall in love with her. And then feeling hurt when you find out that she's with somebody else. I mean, you have to have been a damn fool. You're a member of a corporation. The Boston Celtics are a mini corporation inside of the corporation known as the NBA. It's just a corporate asset. You can be moved.
You know, it's a tough thing to figure out, but you do look, as you pointed out, they gave him the bag, so you do want him to show them that heart, which I think he does.
I think he does every night. He does.
It's hard to say what should happen there next for him. Time for Jump Recommends.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with that Anthony Davis situation. I'm rooting for him to get traded to Boston. I think that it would be great for the league for him to go to Boston. It would allow New Orleans to just re-sign Boogie Cousins and maybe bring in another player to play with him. I think that it would allow them to play in a more modern style, which would help not only the Boston Celtics by acquiring Anthony Davis, but it would help the New Orleans Pelicans. Sometimes you can have addition by subtraction. But Boston should definitely keep pushing for that, because that will take them over the top, and try to do it in a way where they don't have to let go of any of their current players, their current assets. Because right now they're playing phenomenally. Whenever I watch them play, you can tell that team, they just have a very, very good connection on the floor. But anyway, peace.